My journey has been one of learning to recognize the voice of Jesus. How do I follow him, and how do I discern the voice of the enemy and flee from him? How do I know Jesus as deeply and as intimately as I can? How do I know the Father? How do I know the Spirit? And from that, help other people to learn that same thing. I began learning from a friend of mine that I could read the scriptures and I could listen and hear God's voice in those things that stood out to me. When we transitioned from collegiate ministry into working with people post-college, it started in the fact that I have no idea what they're going through and what do we even need to be trying to help them with. And so I titled it a learning community because I thought we need to learn together and I need to learn. And so I think it has morphed into how do we learn to listen to one another better, and just listening and hearing people tell their stories. It's intriguing. How do we listen to one another, but how do we learn to listen to God together? In the early 90s, and for about 10 to 15 years after that, God brought me into a community of people to birth a movement of prayer that hit pockets of people all across the Navigator world. We would have 4-day prayer retreats. And I remember leaving that first prayer retreat going, I have absolutely no idea what I just experienced, but I want more. There's nothing I would rather do than meet with a group of people to seek God and encounter him together. What if we changed our view of prayer? What if prayer is gazing at God? What if we took an aspect of God's character and began to look at that from the scriptures? And how do you want me to respond? Well, about 3 months ago, in the midst of the leadership changes that were going on, Chip came to me and said, Tom, would you consider taking point in the prayer ministry? God, who do you want to play a part in this team? How do we develop the body in prayer? And how do we help our staff develop in prayer? And as I've thought about that, I thought that's what God wants. That's the heart of God, is it's not just a few people praying. How do we mobilize people to recognize that prayer is engaging with God to where we are drawn deeper and deeper into union, intimacy with him, and from that, things begin to happen. It's crazy to see how God has begun to bring others into that picture, to take different pieces of that puzzle. I know that my piece is not the whole thing, but how can others get involved in that? And so what if that person begins to pray with somebody else?